There you go. Eddie Grant there and Electric Avenue. And as I said, as I spoke before the song, I'm going to be joined this morning by Denis Lewis. And Denis is a music photographer, I should say, isn't it? It's all right, I get my teeth back in now, Denis. And Denis has joined me in the studio today because he's part of the Kickplate Gallery, and that's running in Abertillery until the 5th of August. And I think the best thing for me to do is, good morning, Denis.
Good morning, how are you?
And I'm also joined by Lucy, and you were with the Kickplate project as well, aren't you?
Yes, the Kickplate Gallery, yes.
Kickplate Gallery, yes, right. Right, I'll go straight into the questions, Denis. And the first one I'd like to do is, how did your interest in photographing musicians begin? Sorry, I got wrong teeth in this morning.
It's okay, I'll lend you my teeth later. I think it was just a passion for the music. I think I bought my first album back in March of 1964. I think it was a present from my grandmother, a Chuck Berry album, more Chuck Berry, still got it. And basically what happened, it was just an interest in the musicians, and I think that here in Muddy Waters, when age 15, 16, certainly had an effect on you. I'd listened to the Rolling Stones, but they weren't really the real thing. And once you heard the original version, the versions of records by Chuck Berry and Muddy Waters, Bo Diddley, etc., you just changed I changed my attitude to the music, dropped the Stones like a hot potato, and carried on with the real thing, John Lee Hooker, etc., etc. So it was just an onward going thing, but I think the passion didn't really kick in until I had the chance to see Muddy Waters. That would have been in about 1967, 67, when he played at the Hammersmith Odeon as part of a package tour, and got the chance to meet him then, and that's when I picked up my Brownie 127 with the flash gun on it and started using that for a period of time.
That was going to be my next question, to be honest, Denis, because lots of us today, we've all got these cameras on our phones and what have you, so it's always handy. But what was your first camera?
Well, it was a Brownie 127.
It was, isn't it?
Yeah, and then after that, a Pentax Spotmatic F, then a Pentax MX, then a Pentax LX.
That's all numbers, all numbers over my head.
And I've finished up on Nikon now, so we'll stick with Nikon now.
But the Brownie camera, then, is that the one you used to look down through?
No. This one was much more sophisticated.
Was it?
It had a viewfinder. So,
I couldn't
and the pop-in flash bulbs, so that as soon as you've taken a photograph, you had to change the flash bulbs. So you had to spit these red-hot flash bulbs out and put another one in, so you learn to have a tissue in your pocket.
Ouch. Burning fingers. But I can always remember my father had a little box-like camera and he used to take to the beach with him, and he always would look down in it for some reason.
But you could never see out of it.
No.
You'd look down into it and the viewfinders are so bad you couldn't see out of it.
That's why I only ever got my head in, when he should have had my shoulders as well.
That was the reason,
How many countries have you visited? Because I expect you've been around a few.
I've spent a lot more time in America. That's where my passion lies, because that's where the music I'm interested in came from. So what actually happened, I went to the States in 1977 and spent a month touring around America. I did 8,000 miles on a Greyhound bus, which almost sent me barking mad. But that was when I first went into Chicago, and Chicago was where I felt really at home because of the music, and that was it. Music scene was absolutely vibrant then, and loads and loads of blues singers around. And since then, the music scene in Chicago has changed a lot. But then it was pretty vibrant, and it still is a vibrant city. But the style of music, I think, has changed. Even though there's blues clubs there, there's not the same number there was in 1977. It's changed.
It's funny how music moves on, but there's always that music that you've got there that it is always there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always a memory from your younger days.
I'm still going to a club that I first went to in 1977, you know, and now it's, oh, you're back. Yes, I'm back. You know, so that was it. But I'm still discovering, you know, new musicians I haven't seen before, and the jazz scene there is pretty vibrant, and it's still an intriguing city to go to. Absolutely intriguing.
Yeah, so you've just met one of our jazz presenters.
Oh, right, okay.
Darryl, he loves his jazz. He always does a jazz show on a Thursday. Right, sorry. Who was your favourite musician to work with?
Oh, Albert Collins, without a doubt. That was a real. That was I first met Albert in 1977, and we became quite firm friends until his death in 1991. Sadly, his death in 1991, and I spent a lot of time with him. I've lost count of the number of times I photographed him, because I probably photographed him 3 or 4 times in America, in New York, in Chicago, in San Francisco, and then I photographed him here in London probably about another 4 or 5 times, part of package tours that came over. He was signed to the last deal he was signed to was with a Virgin label called Point Blank, and he became part of a package tour which included Pop Staples, Larry McRae, etc., loads of people on that. And that was that's how I got to know him. But you know, he was really kind guy, you know, and invited me. I had lunch with him and his wife on a number of occasions. You know, it was great fun.
I was a bit of a character. It was a bit of a character then, because I'm just looking as you're speaking on the website there now with him, and so I'm an electric blues guitarist and singer.
Yeah, so, but Albert was certainly somebody to meet. You know, his. Very generous with his time, always a pleasure to meet. But the interesting thing is that you'd spend time actually talking to him about other things rather than anything else. I remember our last encounter. I said to him, Albert, I thought the doctor told you to take it easy on your drinking, and he said, yeah, he did. I said, well, you're drinking vodka and tomato juice. He said, vodka ain't drinking. I'm not too sure about that, but that was his take on it. You know, and I think everybody around the table looked at him in a sort of startled disbelief. But that was one of his good ones.
Oh yeah, please be drink aware.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Right, what memory stands out you most then in all your time being
Oh, good grief. That's a real. I think meeting Muddy Waters for the first time, I think, was one of the high points. So I met Muddy a couple of times after that, but I think, if I tell you the truth, it was the Hammersmith Odeon. I thought, how am I going to get backstage? So I went and knocked on the stage door, opened by a commissionaire, and I said to him. Told him who I was, and I said, I'm the secretary of the Muddy Waters Appreciation Society in Britain. And that got me in, and Mr. Waters would be delighted to see you. And so with that in mind, you know, he just, yes, it was fine. And then Otis Spann was there, and I got to take photographs of him, and then this guy walked in, and I didn't recognise him till years later. It was George Wine that put on a lot of the jazz shows in London, and quite a lot, you know, he was responsible for putting on loads of jazz festivals, including Newport, Rhode Island, that is, Newport, Rhode Island jazz festivals and things like that. But he was in there as well. But I think it was meeting Muddy for the first time that did it. But I got to meet a lot of musicians afterwards. You know, I've just see now it seems to be that there's a perpetual thing going on, and what would actually happen is that musicians would introduce me to other musicians, and it's an onward going thing. Even now, when I go back to Chicago, you know, it's an onward going thing, and certain musicians, oh, have you met so and so before? No. So your circle of friends becomes bigger and bigger.
Wow, You must have met some fantastic people. You probably could sit there for hours expecting and troll through loads and loads of people, and different stories for each
and
one.
that's before I get onto the record collection.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that, over the years I've become a vinyl junkie, yes, and a CD junkie. And again, as I was saying, what actually happens is that you start to meet different people within the music business, and you find that okay, we'll send you some CDs, and it's quite amazing the generosity of some of my friends, but they employed me to take photographs, and it turns full circle, and I become friends with them, and then what CDs do you want? I'll send them to you. So that's rather nice.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Do you have any advice to give photographers wishing to follow the same path?
Ooh. Patience, but I think more than anything else, and I think this is more, for God's sake, do your research before you go to photograph people. There is nothing worse than going to photograph people and you don't know anything about their music. It could be, it'll just leave you, some of them not interested in you if you don't know what they've actually recorded, and normally I do before I go to photograph anybody else, you always do your research because there's so much you know about them. To give you an example, there was a guy when I was in Chicago last October, Daddy G, and he is a sax player. He's 91 and still playing sax like a 30-year-old.
Wow.
And I said to him, I got a chance to chat to him, and I said, do you remember doing this? And I pushed him over the sleeve notes, Muddy Waters Brass and the Blues. And he'd done the horn arrangements on it, and I said, I still think that's some of the best horn arrangements I've ever heard. But that's the sort of thing that happens, But I would honestly say, do your research. It's like anything else. If you're going to go out there and photograph somebody, no matter who it is, whether it's a musician, a businessman or whatever, do your research. You've got something to talk about.
Yeah.
Because that'll make people relax. Otherwise, you find that people stiffen up. Even though you've shot lots of things before, it's. And I photographed other things outside of music as well. But, music is my passion. That's what draws me back all the time.
So that's good advice, that is. It's the same when we're doing interviews. We try to get the lowdown on the people coming into the studio like yourself today then. Yeah. And as you said, it can be very embarrassing if you don't. No, and it has happened.
A deathly hush.
Yes, it is. Yes,
a deathly hush. When you go, oh, have I said the wrong thing? Yeah.
And don't just rely on Wikipedia for that. I'll give you that advice. Because sometimes it's not all true on Wikipedia.
Okay, there was one thing that and the other thing I'd probably say is, don't take friends along with you. It can be a nightmare because they go on, they ask questions, and you suddenly go, hang on a second. Shall I give you an example? I was photographing Los Lobos.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I'd arranged to photograph them at the Town and Country Club, cleared it all, got to meet them, everything went great. So we went backstage to take their photographs. Now, at this point in time, Paul Simon had recorded Graceland and used them as, should we say, backing musicians. I don't know what the hell you'd call it, but he'd used their music on Graceland and then put his lyrics on top. And I knew there'd been a little bit of a problem with Paul Simon and Los Lobos, animosity over a million-selling album, shall we say. And what actually happened was my friend was with me and I was taking photographs, and he suddenly sparked up, what's the problem you've had with Paul Simon?
Oh, no.
That finished the photographic session in seconds. They just looked at me, up sticks, and were gone.
Oh,
and I think I had about 4 frames, and that was about it. But I turned to my friend after and said, oh, shut up.
And that was a polite version, I bet.
Yes, that was a polite, and but we still laugh about it now.
Yeah.
We still laugh about
Well,
it.
that's a big lesson learned, and thanks for passing that on.
Yeah.
Nice song, that is very useful for them budding photographers out there. And how much do you feel your formal training helped?
A great deal. A great deal, because I was lucky enough to have some great tutors. If I go back, Ron McCormick, David Hearn, Daniel Meadows, Clive Landon, who were all part of the documentary photography school as then in Newport in Clarence Place. And I think that learning the ropes from them, certainly helped me look at things in a different way. And I think it gives you a much more professional attitude, and you learn your skills, and I won't bore you, it could go on and on, but you actually learn the skills of actually talking to people, getting to know them. And I still see people around Newport I actually photographed many of them back in 1983 when I was part of the projects that I was actually working on. And it's quite strange how it comes full circle. But I think the training that you got in Newport was second to none. You're looking at a world famous photographic school. You actually are world, and it still goes on in Cardiff. But under the Paul Reese's direction. But it's still working. It's still going there, and I think the people that have passed through it are always grateful. And there's a big bunch of friends that are still friends from that period, that we all know what other people are doing, which is rather incredible, thinking, 30 plus years down the line.
Oh, that's brilliant. Well, Dennis, I've got to be fair, it's been very nice meeting you, and thank you for all that advice for our listeners and the budding photographers out there. And I think Lucy's going to give us a little bit now and tell us a little bit about the Kick Plate Gallery.
Yes, just a bit.